call this meeting in order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. All opposed? All right, motion carried. Do we have to add me?
Yep. So Bunker, Travis, you will need to make a motion to acknowledge that Justin will be the presiding officer at tonight's meeting due to the fact that the mayor and the
Acting mayor.
acting mayor are not
Well,
here
then,
this evening.
I will make a motion that Mr. Justin Freeler is the acting mayor for tonight's meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, approval of bills of purchase, approval of investments, streets, parks department worker step increase, officer assistant 3 step increase, donation resolution, a gambling resolution, part-time police officer resignation, a pay voucher number 2, a pay voucher number 7, and an EMT hire.
In reviewing the documents prior to the meeting, I didn't see anything in any one of those items that was controversial in any way, shape, or form. And I'd make a motion to approve.
All right, got a motion.
I'll second that.
All right, first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, we go to number 5, presentation. Craig?
You can stand up there too. I think that would be appropriate.
Acting Mayor and members of the council. Tonight presenting Felicia Mundis, our Police Department Secretary, also Office Assistant 3, which just did some approval for, a Professional Law Enforcement Assistance Association Award. What this award is, it's a group put together for folks that do the work that keeps law enforcement working and keeps law enforcement doing what we're supposed to be doing. Cops can create a lot of paperwork, we can create a lot of things that need to go specific places, and those things end up in jobs like what Felicia does. So they need to be proofread, they need to be classified in the right places and put together properly for the county attorney's office or whoever the prosecuting attorney is to move those forward. And without people like Felicia, we wouldn't be able to do our jobs correctly or do them well enough or efficiently. And that's where she's excelled quite well. The efficiency within our office has improved mostly to a digital format instead of paper, although we still need paper for things, has gone more digital, which has been a learning curve for some of us, been along a little bit longer and have been used to finding a paper file in a certain spot, and now it's clicks instead of stacks. So it's been an adjustment for at least some of us, but it's been good. And the nomination actually came from the Belgrade Police Chief, Casey Jansky. He was aware of this organization, which I was not, and he made the nomination. And as soon as it came through, he let Felicia and myself know that he wanted to make sure that she was recognized not only at the Belgrade and Bruton City Council, but also up here because of her role as our primary secretary, but as well as contracted services for them down there. So they did send a plaque and a little laminated piece here that explains everything I basically just said. So I think we'll jump somewhere for a photo and we'll go for that.
You're fine right there.
Okay. You jump in front of the podium then?
Sure.
We'll pass this on.
You guys good?
Oh, you need one?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Miss Felicia, on the recognition you richly deserve.
All right, we move on to reports. Police Department monthly.
Okay, our regular monthly report for June of 2019. In our traffic area, we had 33 citations issued, 72 verbal warnings, and 1 written warning. June of 2019, we had 347 calls or requests for service. Last year was 463. And this year we ended on ICR 2320, and last year was 2589, so we are down a bit from the year previous. 42 agency assists, that is about probably 10 or 12 higher than what we're normally at. And it just seems as though, I don't know if it was the weather or what the story was last month, but we were visiting Sauk Center quite often. I don't know if they've had an influx of residents that have stirred some things over there, what the story is, but there was definitely calls that warranted more than one officer that they had on duty, or maybe even more than 2 officers when they had on duty. So we went to help them. They come our way and we go their way, and we just try and trade off services the best we can. Some areas for discussion, or some areas to highlight for the public. The new hands-free law for driving is going to be going into effect August 1st. Basically what it says is you can't hold your cell phone in your hand anymore while you're driving. It can be mounted in a bracket of some sort or set somewhere. But the idea is to get people to focus on driving, to avoid distractions with cell phones. And it's going to move to a one-touch system. So for the most part, you can push the button to answer it, you can push the button to send a call. But the state really wants to get to either maybe using a Bluetooth earpiece, speaker in your vehicle, connecting it with your vehicle, or things of that nature. Or, even better, not answering the phone at all and just continue to focus on driving. The police department has purchased earpieces for the full-time officers, so that if you do need to make a call, we are exempt under the emergency services, but we feel that it's necessary at times to be answering the phone, maybe transporting the jail or something like that where we can't pull over, so they'll be using the headsets for that. That's kind of what's coming down the line. Some people are going to have to adjust some driving habits. There has been a lot of media on it. I know the Minnesota State Patrol has really been pushing things out. So it'll be a learning curve for some folks, but we just hope that people get ahead of it before the August 1st date. Another area, Night to Unite. We do this annually. I think it's been about 13 years, give or take, maybe even get closer to 15, where we get together as a community, get to know your neighbors, get to know your law enforcement personnel. The fire department's there, the ambulance is usually there, police department's there. Kids can run around, look at vehicles, get stickers and cool stuff from them, as well as Freeport State Bank always offers a hot dog plate lunch. The food shelf is invited, so there'll be availability to donate items to the food shelf or money for them to continue to operate and serve our area, as well as other organizations that are able to make it. That is Tuesday the 6th, 5:30 to 7:30, so there'll be more coming out through the newspaper or through social media. Some areas that have come up since the last meeting, and these are maybe more just food for thought for the council right now, and maybe it'll be brought up at a later August meeting or September. There's a request for 1-hour parking, so limited parking over by the Area Learning Center. They're going to be expanding usage of that building. They're having about 17 people from the West Central Education Cooperative that are now moving their office space over to the Melrose ALC. With that then brings X number of vehicles every day. They would like to, they've tried to have people use the parking lots and park away from where the people that are there for Stearns County Services or anything else, away from the front entrance area. That doesn't seem to be helping. I did speak with Superintendent Greg Winter about it. His request is maybe a 1-hour parking limit, or maybe restricted parking on the north side of that road and leave the south side for everyday parking and that sort of thing. So that's just something to consider that could be coming down the line, or maybe can be discussed if you so choose tonight already. I haven't discussed it much with the street supervisor or anything like that. It just comes with things for consideration anyway. Another area that we may need to make some adjustment, and this is maybe a discussion item as well, is we had or have a golf cart ordinance that allows for permitting to allow golf carts to go throughout the city, restricted to certain roads just because of the nature of a golf cart and those sorts of things. Last year in May, we removed ATVs from the ordinance, and a lot of the focus was on the side-by-sides, the bigger machines. There's 2 different classes, and those are a different class. What the question comes down to now is a standard 4-wheeler that we all are very familiar with since before the side-by-sides became a thing. What happened was some folks in town were driving, and a Stearns County deputy came to town and noticed that they're operating four-wheelers as opposed to side-by-sides on roadways and those sorts of things, and raised the question as far as where's the permit for that? We weren't aware and weren't familiar with that. If you allow an ATV to operate within your city on city streets, they have to be permitted under state law. It could be very similar to what we already did with, here's the form, fill it out so that we understand you have insurance and those sorts of things, and we give them a permit. There could be a fee assigned to it like we do with golf carts. It could not be that. It could be the discussion or the decision by the city council. But when we remove them from the ordinance, in essence, we're violating state law. So we don't want to necessarily put our citizens at risk for something like that, or the city at risk for something like that either. So that's why we're bringing it back up. It would only pertain to the four-wheelers themselves. The class 2s or the side-by-sides are exempt because of their size, their weight, and all those sorts of things. So my thoughts would be is that we bring them back in under that golf cart ordinance. We offer our permit, whether there's a fee to it or not, but similar to what was being done prior to it being removed last year. That's just my thought process on it. I don't know if there's discussion for the council or just something to think about and bring it up for next meeting. But that's the process I think would be, it would meet what the statute says, as well as puts everybody back on the same thought processes we had before.
And that would also simplify the enforcement issue, I believe, if you've got that yellow, is it a yellow sticker?
Yep, it's a yellow sticker. It could go on the back by the registration. It's already would be required under state law. The area of concern or of question is if people are coming into town, maybe they live outside the city limits, or they're on some sort of four-wheeler ride of some sort. We would handle them probably, if it's not a consistent thing, if you have somebody that consistently is coming through town, you may need to have a discussion about permitting that if they're leaving the county roads, so 13 Main Street, North 3rd Avenue West, and some of those segments in the southeast. We'd have to have a conversation about where they're going with it and whatever else, and maybe they would need to be permitted even though they're not a city resident. But for the most part, people coming in with four-wheelers, coming into town, going through town and doing business isn't going to be an issue. And the side-by-sides don't pertain to that because of their size and all those sorts of things and the way that they get to do business. But when they start operating on city streets, then we might have to have a conversation with them. But otherwise, four-wheelers are pretty rare that are out driving around. If they are, it's generally there's a snowplow on it in the dead of winter and they're going to help somebody out. So it's just a matter of being in compliance with the state law for the most part is what we're looking to do.
All right, just to emphasize, there's the two classes of ATV.
Right.
The heavier one, class 2s, side-by-sides, we're fine, not requiring a permit on those.
Right. Yep. Those do not require a permit. Just the class 1's a standard four-wheeler. Yep.
50 inch.
And I don't think it's anything that was intentional when things got changed last year. It's just something we weren't aware of at the time, and it just, in my opinion, needs to be corrected so that we're not causing.
Yeah, I think at that time we asked, because that was when the sheriffs were all running, and they were basically understanding that we were good to go, like, their license, so.
And I believe if I remember correctly, is they weren't an issue, so until they become an issue, maybe it can be addressed then. And I'm not saying that there's any issues with four-wheelers now. It's just a matter of that it is spelled out in state law that they should be permitted, so that we should be following that.
So, just so I've got this fairly clear, you don't see a lot of the actual four-wheelers on any streets at this time?
It's dwindled significantly.
And when you do see them, it's normally kind of a maintenance issue, a snow removal or
Right.
something like that.
They're not joyride vehicles compared to the side-by-sides.
They're not running up to Coburn's to get some milk and stuff and then run.
Okay.
I guess if you're not seeing as being a blatant issue that needs to be addressed at this time, we could let it ride. If it becomes a situation where either somebody's abusing it or you have a change of heart, we can readdress it at that time. But if we do, I like the idea of just having them go through the permitting process like a golf cart or anything else.
Yeah, I think what we
Then there's
we should
consistency.
do is bring it back for the August meeting, propose bringing it back into the ordinance, and then do some education as far as through the newspaper or social media and all those sorts of things to make people aware that we are bringing ATVs back in, the standard four-wheeler, and that we'll work with people to try and get that back up to par. Since it was there, it got removed, people are going to have that understanding again. So.
Have we looked at other towns? I mean, like, what are other towns doing? Because I
Well,
mean,
like we had spoke about last year, a lot of towns are just ignoring it. And I don't know that they're aware of what this law says either. And maybe they're not having anybody rolling around with them. But we are seeing it periodically. It's not a weekly thing, it's not even a monthly thing, it's a periodic thing. We don't want to be directly violating a state law.
And I would guess it's not an apples to apples. Somebody's driving some sort of a four-wheeler in Greenwald as opposed to driving in Melrose where there's substantially more traffic, you know, on the side streets and so on.
Yeah,
and
there
so
are some of
forth.
those issues as well. And with us having full-time law enforcement here, it's a different situation that you can't always turn a blind eye, or you can't allow things to continue if you know that there are rules or laws against it. And that's where I think some education and some conversations is definitely warranted.
Just add it to next month's meeting then.
we can talk about it next month.
With full council, we'll address it in
Right.
August.
Sure.
And I think that's everything that I have, unless you want me to ramble on about something else for a while.
I think we're good.
Excellent.
All right, Scott, your report.
Yeah, just a couple of items. Chief Mouse already discussed the reviewing of how we're handling ATVs and golf carts. The other item that came up is meeting with representatives from St. Mary's just to kind of see where they're at and make sure we're all on the same page and, what they need to do to complete their environmental assessment worksheet. And then once they've got it completed, what's the process and procedures for, filing with the state and getting the notice out to people entitled to notice, and then, want to make sure everybody understands the process. If the mayor and Councilman Clausen were here, I know they were went through this process because we had to do an EAW with the Genio plant. I don't know if you were on the council yet, just
With the EAW?
with the EAW, where you, yeah. So I mean, it would be a similar process for the council. These don't come up a deal often in our area, and so we got to do a little re-educating every time, to make sure we get the process right, keep the various state agencies looking over our shoulders happy before this. So just so that you're aware of it, we would expect that St. Mary's will be filing their EAW in the next few weeks. Ultimately, it gets filed with the State Environmental Quality Board. There is notice of the EAW given to it. It's a state mandated list of, I believe, about 13 different agencies and Indian tribes. And then we also have to publish a notice that it's been filed in the paper. Anybody that wants to look at it, all these state agencies look at it. They can file comments. Ultimately, the EAW and the comments and St. Mary's responses to the comments all come back to the council, and the council is asked to make a decision whether or not you think that this project has some environmental issues that would justify requiring an environmental impact statement. So in the coming months, that will be showing up on your agenda. There are some timelines for getting that done, but the goal here is to fit it into existing council meetings so that it would be just an agenda item on one of the regular meetings. We wouldn't have to have a special meeting, which I believe we did for Genio. So,
No, I understand that the EAW is a necessary process, but what is the city's responsibility for a private entity that wants to remove a building from a property they own? I don't need a percentage, but if you could just briefly kind of explain to me how we're tied into this.
What happens is that the state of Minnesota generates a list of projects that an environmental assessment worksheet, EAW, is required. Depending on the project, different either the state agencies or government units are then responsible for the review.
Okay, but kind of what's the city's responsibility and what's the diocese? Because isn't that kind of the onus on the diocese or the parish? Or
Yeah, they have to put together the information and put it together. The city reviews it, to make for completion before it gets sent out into the world. But the reason it comes back to the state is that on their matrix of which projects get reviewed by whom, this is a project that the local unit of government, in this case Melrose, is responsible for making the determination. It could be the county, it could be the watershed, it could be at the state level, one of those agencies. I think it's unusual here because most of our projects don't require one. So I think we don't do these very often. If the project, it's more common, just one that's been in the paper, this pipeline they want to build in northern Minnesota. I mean, that makes a certain amount of sense, an environmental assessment and impact statement. And all that's prepared and reviewed by.
But we're not making notifications to the Historical Society or any Indian tribes or that sort of thing.
Yep.
That's up to the diocese.
No, that's up to us. That we do that. We submit it, but no, we're not doing it for free. Is my understanding is that the diocese reimburses the city for its costs for processing the EAW.
So the guideline or the statute or whatever it is says that because the property is in this community, we have to be the overseer of the EAW.
Yep.
Okay.
We're it.
We don't do anything with content. So the content is provided by the diocese, and we are just simply the authority, the agency that reviews and distributes that to the other agencies.
And I think I'm understanding that it's a necessity, but I don't necessarily agree with city staff, yourself, our city staff, getting bogged down, taking a lot of time.
We're going to look
To
at
make
it
sure.
from content on our perspective, and then each of the agencies that respectively looks at it will send their comments and review back to us. And then after that time, based on those comments and review, it will come back before the council and they can make the determination whether or not they have to move forward. So I don't,
And I included it just because I wanted to make sure that you were all aware that this is in the works, because ultimately you're asked to make a determination. Either yes, we think an environmental impact statement is necessary, in which case they go on to prepare that. No, there is, environmental impact statement is not necessary, in which case then the process of this environmental review is done. Or we think that there's not enough information for us to make a decision and send them back to submit more. So that
And you know, we can't speak to the content of that because we haven't seen it yet. so.
we haven't seen any of it yet. It's just so that you're not surprised when it pops up and you're given a thick piece of paper and asked to make a decision.
And I think at first we had an option of exempting it or something, right? I do remember something coming up like.
There are some categories where, you know, these EAWs are not mandatory. But then there is a list of mandatory.
Right.
And this is on the mandatory list. I mean, nobody goes looking for work, you know, to try to generate these things. And so if this was not on the mandatory list, we wouldn't be fussing with it.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work for the diocese, and there will be a certain amount of staff time chewed up, you know, in handling this.
Yep.
That's all I've got, unless you've got any more questions.
I'm good. She'll be good. All right. Thanks.
Thank
Scott.
you.
All right. Colleen, you're covering city engineer.
I am very briefly just kind of bringing you up to date on the Arch Rock Rapids again. So the last time we met, we had a special meeting actually to say we're proposing in the work plan that we're going to spend up 50% of the cost for engineering, and we were going to propose that LCCMR spent 50% of the cost to finish up the design engineering for the full pool Arch Rock Rapids. But if you'll recall, when we talked about that, one of the big conversations we also had is prior to when we were going to be going to the LCCMR board, we were scheduled to have a conference call with the DNR. So we actually had that conference call last week. There were 3 representatives from the DNR as part of that, 2 representatives from the watershed or representing the other source of funding. I can't think of the name right now. And then Becca Nash and Megan Leonard, both with the LCCMR board. So that was over a 2-hour conference call, very long conversation. It was myself, Mike Nielsen, and Luke, all from WSB. So it kind of kept just circling back to this idea of, you know, what is the DNR going to permit and how much is it going to cost? And I did not feel that we would have been able to move forward and present anything to the LCCMR board at their meeting, which would have been yesterday. We would not have been able to give them a work plan, because my feeling is the DNR is saying their way is to lower it. This is how it's going to happen. If we choose to permit at that full height pool, it's never been done before. It's not really going to meet the test as far as the environmental quality, and it's going to be extremely expensive. So at this point, I'm not recommending anything. What I would like the council to consider is just to put a pause on this. And by that I mean, let us as staff kind of do some more research on it, really kind of just take a step back from this and see what alternatives exist. Is there a compromise between what they want and what the city wants, or isn't there? And if the city is saying, no, you know, you design either that full pool or we do the dam, ultimately, absolutely, we'll do whatever the city requests. But I would just like to have the opportunity to kind of take a pause and see what else we can do on this particular project without spending any engineering dollars to do it. So I do want to tell you that it was fully my intent to submit that work plan, and that's why we had that special meeting. But after that conversation that we had that lasted over 2 hours, I did not feel comfortable going to the LCCMR board at this time. I didn't think it was in the city's best interest. And And I did have a conversation, I think I talked to a couple of you guys about that, but that's kind of where I'm at, so, or where we're at as a city. So, and Mike agrees with me. I think this is kind of where we're at right now. So
Okay.
that's just kind of all I have about that one for now. So, unless you guys have questions.
No.
All right. City administrator report?
Yep. So I have now been with the city for a month. It was a month yesterday. I have met with several of the businesses. I've tried to get out to meet with several. I obviously would like to meet with several more. There's many businesses that I haven't had a chance to meet with, but I have met with some, which is very good. I have met almost all city staff. I think there's a couple police officers I haven't met, but other than that, I've met with actually all the city staff. And I will tell you as a council that the staff that works here is an excellent group of people. They're very hardworking. They have a lot of integrity, so I'm very happy to be part of this organization. We have a good staff. I met with Jerry Gilbertson and Julie Baum from Centricare, and we had a really good conversation, a great tour of the facility, and that was very interesting. You know, they brought up the idea of housing and how important it is when they're trying to recruit for RNs, LPNs, doctors, etc., that housing is a very critical part of what they do. Housing in general is something that we know is an issue. I've met with Stearns County HRA. We've discussed potentially looking at some workforce housing projects. So as I get more information on that, I'll bring it back to the council. The other thing is I am meeting with a real estate broker next week to talk to them about how we can help them, and the hospital in particular, you know, create a package that would make Melrose a place for people to want to live if there's available inventory, which right now there actually is a little bit better inventory than there was, I would say, a couple years ago. So, but there's still not enough. There never is. You look in the paper every day and it's going to tell you we have a shortage of housing no matter where you're at. Our neighbors, a couple of our neighbors have built a couple apartment buildings, and I think we're going to continue to see that as a trend, so it's something that I think we as a city have to look at. The craft lot, the developer had until the 16th of July to get back to us. I did get an email back from them saying that they are no longer interested in that lot, and so I have actually sent that proposal out to some other developers at this time. So that's what I have on that particular thing. I did want to let you know that we've signed some contracts. So our telephone system should be going into all the City of Melrose buildings, hopefully within the next 45 to 60 days. We are going to have HVAC that's going to start here in September at City Hall. Those are some big contracts. And Worms Concrete is actually in the process of doing the sidewalk on Highway 65. So if you've seen our guys out and about, which you probably have, our electric department is working on transformers right now. So if you see them out and about, that's what they're doing. And then Gary's crew just finished seal coating, so you saw, or he didn't, but we contracted with somebody to do that. His guys did some work related to it, but and that's largely been done as well. And then right now Lisa is out on maternity leave. We have not contracted with Jane Brown. That is an option that if we want to, we can. At this point, I don't see the need to do that yet. Jacob is still here, our intern, and he's doing a great job. And so at this point, we're just going to wait and see what happens to determine whether or not we need Jane's services. There was a repair that was done on a sewer line on Central Avenue. I met with the soccer league on July 6th to talk to them. I actually met them down at the park, talked to not only the organizer but all of the captains, and explained to them that we have had some issues down there with cleanliness, them, you know, vandalizing or not, you know, taking care of the bathrooms, that type of thing. And so I gave them each a form that kind of explained all the park rules. It was in both English and Spanish. And I gave that to each of the teams and asked them that they really need to, you know, do their part and make sure that they're clean, keeping the park clean. Gary did put blue garbage bins all the way around the soccer field, so that should help with, you know, they're accessible now, so they shouldn't have any problem putting stuff in the garbage. We will continue to work with them through the rest of the season and just see how it goes. I did get a report last week. I've asked the police department to do drive-throughs, and I have also been talking to Gary and his crew, and the park, it's not 100%, but this last weekend I think it was better than it had been. So, it's one of those things that I think is kind of a work in progress, and I'll keep you posted as to how we move forward with that. And then the other thing that I have is regarding the new Munich JCs. And Sophia's here tonight, and she certainly can answer your questions. That's a little bit later down on the agenda. So that's all I have for my report, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Gary, did you notice, I noticed they were having great fun down there this weekend. I mean, there were a lot of cars, a lot of soccer people. Did it appear to be a little better on Monday?
Yeah.
With more trash receptacles and stuff?
Yeah, actually, I think the crew was down there Sunday picking up some extra debris.
Good.
All right. Move on to action items. 7A, memo of understanding Stearns County HRA.
Shoot. I'm trying to get fancy on you guys, and now it did. For a second it worked. There we go. So what we have is Stearns County HRA. We have 3 small cities development projects that we did. One, I believe it was in 2002 or 3. Another one in 2008 and 10, I think are the dates. I might not have those exactly right, but what it was is Stearns County was who we had contracted with to do those grants for us. And then typically, after a year after that, then it gets turned over to the city, and we do all of the reporting. Well, we've never done that. Stearns County HRA has just always taken care of that for us. So when I was meeting with Neil and Nicole, we looked at where our funds were, and the funds that we had from previous ones are being used right now for the project that we have going with Central Minnesota Housing Partnership. The funds, our previous funds, are part of what are considered our match. And so we just never had a memorandum of understanding with Stearns County to administer that for us. And basically, I'm recommending that we continue, or that you sign the MOU and that you approve it. They have the expertise. They have the staff there that does that. They are very familiar with all the reporting. If we as a city took it over, it's not that we couldn't do it, but we just simply don't have the expertise that they do, because this is what they do. This is part of what they do. I think it's like $250 a year is what they're charging us. And then for every assignment that they complete or everything they've done, every satisfaction, it's only $100. So, it's it's a really good deal for what we're getting. So, and then that way we don't have to be concerned about it when the feds come out to audit. It's just taken care of by Stearns County. So.
Well, like you say, they have expertise.
Yep.
They have already been doing it, and economically, it isn't going to get any better. So, I'd make a motion that we enter into this agreement, formal agreement, and allow Stearns County to monitor the housing and redevelopment in Melrose.
All right. You got a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, we'll move on to 7B, resolution number 2019-39, resolution adopting special assessment for repaving Angel Vargas and, I'll butcher this, Nita Molina's parking lot.
So at our May, we had a special council meeting. When we were doing the 2019 street project, we were approached by these property owners, and they requested to pave their parking lot in conjunction with our project. They had signed a paving agreement. The project cost was $6,000. The agreement was stated that they would pay $3,000 by July 15th, and the remaining $3,000 would be assessed over 3 years. Unfortunately, we have not received the initial reimbursement of the $3,000. So we have updated our resolution to assess the entire amount against their property. So the terms would be the same, 3 years and an interest rate of 3.95%.
The paving's all been done back there already?
Paving has been done
Okay.
and the bill came in this week for that, so.
All right. Have we talked to them at all? Or, I
We
mean-
have the signed agreement with them, sent a letter, and then we sent a follow-up invoice as well.
Okay.
And we
So
did
they've
send
been-
them certified mail, so.
They've been presented it several times. Okay. Well, anybody want to make a motion to assess it on their taxes?
There's not much we can do.
Yeah, I mean, we
I mean,
almost
there's
have to.
nothing to really do with it, is there?
I think this would be the best way to get the collection. You know, we could go through collection agencies or other things,
Right.
but I think this would be, with those, we pay a large percentage to the collection agency. I think this would secure the money faster for the city.
I'll make a motion to assess the entire amount.
I'll second.
All right, got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. All right, we'll move on to 7C, part-time streets/parks maintenance worker.
So we reposted the part-time street park maintenance worker position. If you'll recall, I believe it was at our last council meeting. It may have been on the consent agenda item. We pulled out that part-time and we just, because the street maintenance worker position, doesn't matter if it's part-time or full-time, it's the same job. So we thought we would get better traction if we just put it in the same pay scale or the same steps as the full-time, even though it's a part-time position, but at the same wage rate. And so we actually received 2 different applications and we interviewed both candidates on Monday, July 15th. At this time, we are recommending Bob Beckerman be hired to fill that position. Again, it is part-time. It's more hours in the summer than it is in the winter, but it is truly a part-time position. Normally, we budget up to 1,600 hours for that, and depending, we've averaged about 1,300 to 1,400 for the position itself over the last couple of years. So with his experience, I'm recommending that the council consider hiring him in at step 3, which would be $16.56 per hour for this position. And he would be starting August 1st.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. All right, 7D, Fall Festival. I don't know if you guys got any questions. Sophie can probably.
Miss Sophie, why don't you come on up and tell us
Speak
about
on
your
that.
rodeo?
So as Sophie's coming up, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background. Sophie met with myself and Gary, I think it was last week? Yeah, last week. So Sophie came in and we were trying to find, because the rodeo was down in the park last year, and the problem was it really didn't work great because of what they needed. And so we were kind of going back and forth, and then we went over and we measured the craft lot, which is right next to City Hall. And that actually would work very well for the rodeo portion of what they want to do. And then there is still the other parts of what they want to do, which is something that they would like to do down in the park, Sock River Park. And so from a proximity standpoint, we felt that they were close enough that people could just walk back and forth. So I had asked Sophie to come and talk to you guys tonight because, you know, some of the questions that I had and some of the things that I want to know is obviously the schedule of events, activities, insurance, all the things that would typically, we would require as part of a festival, you know, so that we're held harmless type of thing. So Sophie felt like the craft lot would work, but I said I obviously had to get the blessing of the council. It was not something, as the administrator can make that decision, it really did need council's approval. So I did ask her to come and to answer any of your questions that you may have for her tonight. And then give us your thoughts or your opinion or your approval on this event and where it can be held.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got things in motion for September 6th, 7th, and 8th this year. We are doing a 2-night rodeo this year, adding barrels, which is why we needed to move out of the park because we expanded. We decided to go with 2 nights as we had a sold out event last year and then some. So we're trying to help accommodate a little bit more and better. let's see, Friday night, the 6th would just be the rodeo and band afterwards. So I think what did we figure? It would be 6 o'clock start time with rodeo, and then whenever that gets done, you know, that 8:30, move down to the park for the band. And then Saturday, we will be having horseshoe tournaments using the arena again since we have it set up. We're going to utilize it and do horseshoe tournaments. Car show would be moved to Saturday. The car and semi show, that is down in the grass area in the park, and on with the soccer field by the road again. This year we do not have a carnival coming in. We are working with an organization out of the cities who, it's basically bounce houses, but it's more interactive. It's, you know, mothers and children, fathers and children, husbands, wives, whatever, friends can go and, you know, do obstacle courses and different stuff. So there's about 8 of those, and they're all different age ranges. So I'm hoping that we actually have people interacting more with each other versus just putting a kid on a ride and standing there watching. So there's that, and then, yeah, that pretty much all afternoon, games, whatever, throughout the afternoon. And then we would have another rodeo again up on Craft at 6 o'clock or 5:30 Saturday night, followed by a band. And then River of Life Church wants to do breakfast in the park Sunday morning with church service. And that's pretty much how we would end our festival, is with that. And then, yeah, I don't know, I'm working with Gary the last couple of years, and Chief, we've been really good. We get the cones out, blocking the road. We block this road for the rodeo on Friday night, unblock it when we're done. Saturday, same deal, it'd be open until we're ready to block it late afternoon.
So when they walk across the bridge, the 400 block area there won't be any vehicle traffic, so pedestrian. I think that's a good idea, especially if it gets closer to darkness.
Right. The thing is, with the rodeo, they will actually come in that Monday, like they did last year, and set up. We'll have all the chutes and stuff set up, and then we'll be hauling bleachers in all week long for the rodeo. So we would have the craft lot tied up for the whole week due to that, and then tear down, we would pretty much be tore down and out of there late Sunday, and try to basically have anything that would be left be kind of pushed off to the side that we'd have to finish up Monday or Tuesday, but we'd have lot back to normalcy for Monday. We would be hauling in gravel that we had down at the park last year. We'd be hauling that back in, just so when those riders fall, they have a little more cushion to fall on. So we currently have that because we still have it from last year. And Waterbury will be getting hold of Patty to do all of our licensing for our off-sale liquor, all that stuff. The JCs do carry own insurance. The rodeo carries insurance. We actually pay with the rodeo for extra insurance, just the what ifs. Sponsors, again, it's all of our community pulling in as sponsors. That's going much better this year because, well, we kind of have a year underneath our belt. People know what it is now, and people are excited. So I don't know. It's about kind of where we're at.
Okay. Is the band and stuff gonna, with the block in the street, is the band gonna be up here? Is that what
Band will go down. We'll have that down in the park.
Down in the park,
So yeah,
okay.
what my plan is, actually, I loved how Riverfest did their band this year, and that's exactly how.
Okay.
Since we won't have the carnival, all the blow up stuff, and that's where me and Gary will that week, you know, look at weather, kind of go over everything, and we'll decide at that point where we
Okay.
want to set stuff up based on the weather for the weekend
Right.
and how the lawn is and.
Yeah, I know the park and recs, I guess the only questions that we talked about was if it rains. I mean, if it rains, it gets super wet, like the car show being on the grass, you know, could it get moved if it needed to?
Right, and I think we have enough, you know, it's not a huge car show due to we're competing with Little Falls that weekend and
Oh, okay.
different stuff, so, but I mean, we'll improvise just
Right.
like we do with everything else, and it works, and
Okay.
So, you know, we know to keep the semis right on the edge, so we're not getting them in the field, ripping up the field. You know, it's something I was pretty picky about last year, because I don't want to lose our privileges
Right.
with that stuff. So, we would be looking at, doing something again with the camping. It sounds like we will probably have a full park this year, because we have barrelers coming up from the cities all over the state. We have barrelers coming in.
Okay.
So we are probably be looking at using the full and hopefully overflowing to Lake Sylvia. I don't know, but we'll start dealing with that as, and we are working with pre-registrations. It is up on the rodeo site already that when they call to register, they are to let them know if they need camping, so we can get them paperwork and try to pre-register them, so we have a head count and kind of know what we got going on. And if all of a sudden we have 50, then there's some assessment that we need to do and figure out what to do to help keep them in, you know, and accommodate for them. So
Do you think porta potties? Yes. Do you guys bring in porta potties too, Sophie?
Yep. So we work with what's now Biffy's.
Becker's Biffies?
Yeah, Becker's Biffies. So, yeah, our porta pots come in from them. We actually have, we work with O-Pots, and they bring in big roll-offs for us. And then we also bring in trash cans. We have a bunch that we got from Leadstone last year made in trash cans, and we bring those down, and then continuously we're watching them and dumping them into the roll-offs when need be. And so.
Answer your garbage. Okay.
And then, yeah, I mean, Sunday we spend the day down there cleaning up, you know. We do a run through, and I don't think we had any issues last year as far as garbage and stuff like that I was aware of. So.
Yeah, the only thing I don't know is what we talked about at the Parks Board. We changed I think we changed
Yeah, the damage deposit.
to do a damage deposit. You get it back if you have everything cleaned up or whatever it was. But I don't know if Gary, I think you were there when we talked about it, maybe.
Yeah, we had talked about $1,000 damage deposit.
But I don't know if we ever even went through with it or not.
I think it was.
Yes, it did go through. It was voted on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have the specifics, but
So that would be one thing that'll get added to there. Like I said, it's just more of a check, I think, that just gets
Yep.
administered and basically given back once the event's done. And I don't know what else, what did you do last year for the camping? Did you do half the?
I can pull it up here in just a second.
So what did we do, like 500 or 600, and that included?
6 stalls or
I
10
think so.
stalls or 8 stalls?
It was 6 stalls and pavilion.
Yes.
For $500, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's
sounds
what it
about,
was last year.
I think
Right.
pretty right, yeah. And we would need pavilion again this year, and I don't know, all of our food vendors are
Right.
asking, you know, I don't know, that's what's great is everybody asks to come back, and
Yep.
so.
Well, and having 1 year under your belt, you know what
Well, at
went
least
really
with the
good and
rodeo.
what didn't go so good, so
Right.
it'll make it hopefully easier.
Right, yeah, and I mean, like, we've reached out with John Doe about doing our VIP section that we'll have this year. So it's trying to pull other businesses and other organizations in, because this is such a huge fundraiser. You know, I know the numbers of what they're all doing each year, and their numbers are going up. So yeah, they want to be a part of it. So now we're trying to figure out how can we bring in other businesses or other nonprofits to help them be profitable and make money off this weekend as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if they want the whole park. I mean, is that a big issue? I mean, like all the camping stalls, or?
You would have to reserve it ahead of time. That's what we typically do with Urban Backers rents it.
Mhm.
He gets it on the schedule for the week. That's typically a
Okay.
practice.
How late does this soccer league go, do you know?
They go through the middle of October, but if we knew this, we would just have a conversation with them that weekend. It would not be available for them. I think they go through August, and then they have some tournament in
Yeah, and I
October.
don't think last year was a problem either.
No, they actually helped participate in the events and came down and actually helped teach soccer skills and stuff with kids and
Okay.
different stuff. So, yeah, they weren't down there for their event, but they were down there as part of ours, helping educate, and that was really fun. So, and I think it sounds like they're gonna be wanting to be a part of it again this year, so.
Okay.
It sounds like you need all the camping already, you know that?
That's what it sounds like. I don't know if we just do look at half again, and then as our registrations come in, we address it again at that time if we need more. Because like I said, they're gonna be paying, so then I just come in, we pay it, you know, after we get past our 6. Because I don't, you know, I don't wanna deter other people from coming down to camp if, you know, they're just coming into town. But I mean, if we get the registrations in and we're full, great.
Right.
It's a win-win for the city and it's a win for us because everyone's making money and so.
How soon would you know if they're, all of a sudden it's filling up? I mean, would we be able to catch it at another meeting or?
I don't believe so, because if I remember right, registration is, let's see, so we are the first weekend. Registration is the last week of August for that rodeo. And that's when all the barrelers, I mean, I can make a couple phone calls because I know for sure certain people, so I can make sure, but I think there's 3 or 4, a group, that's our Wild West show that comes on Saturday. There's like 4 of them automatically that are in
Okay.
to camp, so.
More than likely, you're gonna need the whole park, or all the camping probably.
That's my thought, but I don't wanna say yes for sure, because then I'll just shoot myself in the foot or something.
Well, Patty, what did we do last year? Do you-
Oh, I just had this, let's see if I can get it to you. Hang on a second, we have to drive me just a second.
I mean, if we did, I mean, we could stick with the same amount, same cost, and keep it the same as last year, and if you need more camping,
I
then.
think Gary thought 6 stalls though, not
How
all.
many days are you figuring for this camping? So we would have to.
Friday,
sign
2
it
night. Well, yeah, 2 night, Friday, Saturday.
For the camping. So we'd have to sign it if there's people coming for reserving 6 stalls or whatever. 'Cause it's kind of a first come, first served.
I know, and it's been busy this year down there, so.
I'm just reading this from last year's meeting minutes, okay, from June 28th. The motion was made by Mr. Freeler, second by Paulson, carried to reduce the fees from $1,575, $12,000 camp, 1,200 campsite and $375 pavilion to $500, and allowing the organization to reserve a maximum of 6 campsites and use the pavilion for the days of September 5th through the 9th.
Okay.
So that was from
What?
2018.
How many campsites are there, Gary?
12.
I guess I would assume if you're getting a lot of response, that you really probably aren't going to have any difficulty filling those 12 campsites. The other thing too is just if we have 2 folks that slide in there and they're not excited about music in the park until 11 or 11:30 or whatever, you know, they might be a little bit unhappy, you know, thinking a nice quiet stream running through this little town and there's revelry and there's music and everything else going on down there, so.
What do you wanna do?
Well,
I would say, are they notified if they ask for camping that weekend and we're unaware of the event? Do we, as city staff, tell them that? You're welcome to camp, but there's a band down there?
I
They
don't think
always
they
make
really,
reservations. They'll
they
tell
don't really
people
come in
what-
and make reservations, they just go down
Oh,
there.
they just show up?
Right, they can, yes, yes.
So you just deal, if they had a problem with that, we could refund
Yeah,
them
it's
and they
a
move
first come,
on.
first served basis. We don't allow reservations unless a group does the whole park.
Right.
And if somebody comes in and they're like, well, I didn't expect to hear music till 11:30. I'm sorry, but that's what's happening. They have this event going on. If you choose to stay, great. If not,
And I would guess by late afternoon on Friday, there's going to be enough things down there where it's
Yeah, we'll
obvious
have
there's
the
some
band
sort of
stand down
event.
there. We'll
So
have,
if somebody swings in at 7 o'clock and wants a campsite,
well, one, there's gonna be no parking down there because
Yeah.
it's gonna be full because of the rodeo.
so.
and
So,
it's
yeah,
after Labor Day weekend, so camping will be dwindling anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
Well, I think you go ahead with your event, and hopefully, you fill up the spots, and if somebody does show up, they show up, and they'll have to put up with the cowboys and the music.
Come party with us.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep it the same as last year?
As far as the fees?
Well, 6 sites, fees.
You wanna start with that, 6 sites?
or do you-
I'm fine
or
with
do you-
starting with that. I mean, like, I can make some phone calls, get a couple hard numbers of for sures that I know. And if we got 6 full within the next week, then we'll just bring it back to meeting next
Right.
month to take the rest of the park.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with
And you're
that.
fine with the same deposit?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think everybody was fine with that last year, at least from the park side of it.
But
Can't
we're gonna
can't
go up
speak.
to 1,500 this year now instead of the 500 because of the $1,000 deposit.
Right, and you'll get the $1,000, I think it's $1,000, right?
I'm just gonna say it was 1,500, but that was due to, they were gonna put the rodeo down at the park, and if they would have to make some.
Right, that was if we were gonna put it on the grass.
Sod
Right,
or
yes.
something.
If they would have to make some adjustments, I don't know how to say it, if they would have to move things around down there, such.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
So was that 1,000?
I don't remember again.
I don't have the, do you remember what the damage deposit was from? I don't
I
know.
thought it was
$1,000?
$1,000.
Okay.
We
I
had
don't
some,
remember.
yeah, that's what I thought, because I mean, it was, I don't remember because we were dealing with the soccer field, so.
I have 1,500 for, but that was because last year you guys had to haul in dirt, or someone hauled in dirt, and then they had to be brought back to the original,
They did all that though.
right. But this year they're not even gonna be hauling dirt down
No.
at the park.
So can we
Is my
just make,
understanding.
can we make a motion and
You
whatever?
can put whatever you
that
want
is?
for a damage deposit, I guess.
Well, I would say just use the park's recommended amount. So I make a motion.
You got your $1,000 back last year.
We didn't do a damage.
deposit last year?
We didn't do
We
a
didn't do a
de-
Oh, we
deposit
We didn't do a
last year.
damage deposit last year, but this year we just decided that we probably should start because of things that have happened that Gary and his crew have had to clean up, and
And that's why they said
Keeps them on-
1,500,
keeps them
because they
honest and
thought
clean everything
not-
up.
Right, they just thought that
Is
they
more or
were
less.
make modifications to the park, and they
Yeah.
wanted to, that's why,
not-
from this year, they said 50.
right, it's not costing them $1,000 if they clean it all up, they get it all back, so. But, and I don't think last year we had any problems, right? So, yeah. I don't know, you okay with that?
So I'll make a motion to go ahead with that and use the park board's damage deposit, whatever you
Okay.
approved.
So motion for
So-
$500, 6 campsites,
And the pavilion, right?
and the pavilion for the date of
6th, 7th,
6th, 7th, 8th of October.
September.
September, and then $1,000 damage deposit. I think that's it, right? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Got a first and a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
and we are good with the craft lot?
You're good with the craft lot.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, now we move on to old business. Doesn't look like there is any. Got any?
Correct. There is none.
All right, new business, personnel policy change, hands-free cell phone.
So as Chief Mouse had talked about, as of August 1st, we're going to hands-free devices that you can use in vehicles. The city currently has, as part of our personnel policy, we already have a cellular device policy. So if you look at the attachment that was included in your packet, we're just asking for a couple of changes to that policy so that it reflects the state law that's going into effect. Basically, we really try and encourage our city employees to pull over and to not, be on their phones when they're in their cars. But the reality is that's how a lot of them have to communicate back and forth. So we basically have said the policy that we would like to include, the language would basically say that employees may use hands-free equipment to make or answer calls while driving without violating our personnel policy and without violating state statute. However, safety must always be their first priority. We expect them to keep the calls brief if, because of weather, traffic conditions, or any other reason, you are unable to concentrate fully on the road. You must either end the conversation or pull over and safely park your vehicle before resuming your call. If city-owned vehicles have Bluetooth capacity, city employees can utilize the Bluetooth system to sync with their cellular device. If vehicles do not have Bluetooth capability, department heads and other employees at the discretion of the city administrator will be given city-issued wireless headsets to be used with their cellular device. All Minnesota state laws regarding usage of a cellular telephone while driving must be followed. Any violations of this policy and its guidelines will be cause for disciplinary action in accordance with the city's policy. It is recommended that all calls be made while parked or while not operating the vehicle. So that's just the language that I want to add to what's already in our policy.
I believe that's appropriate and reasonable.
Can you motion this?
That's-
Okay. I have a motion for,
Motion to modify the policy as stated.
all right.
1 second.
All right. First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Chief Mouse, I guess probably in the future, that option might be available when you purchase a squad car to sync the cell phones with the vehicles.
It is
Something,
standard now.
well, pretty much standard.
We've bought, it's always been an option. We've never added the option, so it's standard on all squad cars.
Because I can see, particularly in, the officer's case, especially if you're responding something, chasing over to Sox Center to help those guys with some sort of an emergency situation. It's nice to be able to just touch a button on the steering wheel and communicate.
So, it's available.
All right. So we go 9B, budget retreat.
So originally, if you look in your packet, we had talked about setting a budget retreat with department heads and council for August 1st. Well, it turns out that date has become a bit problematic. In the case of the budget workshop, I really would like full attendance of the council at that meeting. And so in the years past, what you guys have done is you have held the budget meeting right before your regular meeting in August. What we're proposing, instead of having the August 1st budget workshop, we're proposing that the city council meeting on August 15th begin at 5:30. And that's an incentive actually to get the meeting done soon, and begin at 5:30 and adjourn at 6. And then we would go right into the budget workshop or the work meeting for the budget, and then it's only budget that we'll be dealing from that time forward. The city, we bring sandwiches in, so it could be like a working budget meeting. It's a work meeting essentially. No decisions get made at that meeting, but it's really a good chance for council, especially the new members, to really hear about, our budgeting process, to hear from the department heads about what their needs are, also to really get an understanding. And for some of you, it may be repetitive, but I want to go over, our tax increment financing, our tax levy. I would like to go through all of those things. So we're proposing at this time to keep the regular meeting August 15th and begin it at 5:30, and then the budget meeting or the budget workshop would start at 6. That way I'm not disturbing, that way we're just keeping kind of what we already have. So if the council is okay with that, that's what I would propose at this time.
I'd rather roll it all into one night instead of having separate weeks. I don't know how you guys feel, but
It's fine by me.
Yeah,
I'm guessing the rest of them
That
aren't
works
here.
for me, and we won't give Joe an option.
Right, doesn't get an option tonight,
Do we
so.
need a motion or is
Yep.
it just approved? I'll make a motion to August 15th at 5:30.
All right, got a
Regular
motion,
meeting,
second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. 9C, looks like seasonal worker wage adjustment.
So earlier, we had talked about hiring the part-time position for the streets. As part of that, kind of what completes that for the street department is, in addition to having the part-time worker, we also hire a seasonal person. We've been fortunate that while we have not had that part-time position filled this summer, the seasonal person that we do have has worked over their 24 hours. They've done a great job. They've stepped in when they needed to. The gentleman was a longtime city employee, and then he retired. And so he is considered our seasonal person. And he was down at he was in the wage scale of the seasonal, but because of, in recognition really of the work that he has done, and because of his experience, I'm going to recommend that we put him into step 7, which is the highest step for that seasonal employee wage scale. For, again, a number of reasons. And he has stepped up, he's worked every weekend, he's done what he needs to do to fill in while we've not had this part-time position. Plus, he's willing to be a little bit flexible until the part-time can start, and it sounds like, they can kind of work that out among themselves perhaps later. I think if we're able to do that, then we've really solved our problem for a few years as far as getting Gary the staff that he needs to be able to maintain the parks in the summertime. So that is what I would recommend. He certainly deserves it, in my opinion. I did run this past the ad hoc committee, just so you are aware. I did ask them, and I was told by both of them that they did not have, and Bunker's here, and he can tell you that as well. They were both in support of putting Ronnie Tiemann at that step 7 on the seasonal employee wage scale.
I'll make a motion to approve that wage increase.
All right.
A second.
All right, first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Informational items, utility commission minutes. Can I just read all these off in one? Second quarter ambulance report, schools and conferences. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.